Hello, mamas. Welcome here. Today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and how that affects our nervous system and some things that we can learn from the more difficult emotions about ourselves and how we can in a healthy way experience our emotions to move that energy out of our body and help our nervous system become more regulated. Okay, so a lot of emotions, like let's think about anger for a minute. I mean, anger is a very strong emotion. It carries a lot of energy in it, and it can be hard to control that energy once it rises up. Okay, so in our nervous system, what that does, especially if it's triggering a fight or flight, usually a fight, anger would trigger a fight state, then we have this really physical energy, right? It's very much in our body as we want to get it out. It can come out as yelling, it can come out as hitting, it can come out whatever. One of the things that's really helpful for me if I'm starting to feel that big energy is to pump out jumping jacks, because it's a physical energy. It's in our body, it's in our nervous system. We need to move it out. Okay, so anger is a very powerful emotion, and for a lot of us women, we haven't been allowed to use it. We haven't been allowed to express it. We don't know healthy ways of using it and expressing it. A lot of times it'll come out in yelling or shouting, but that's not how we want to raise our kids, right? Right. So what can we learn from anger? How can we process it in a healthy way? Let's talk about it. So we're going to talk about some of the bigger emotions and how learning to process them and get them through our bodies and feel them and learn from them, we'll be able to share that with our kids as well. Okay, so one of the things that is so important is that anger is a big, powerful energy. So when we think about us experiencing it, yes, we know it's hard to control it, right? Once it rises up, it's hard to control it and funnel it into a healthy way of expressing it. And I think part of that for a lot of us is that we never had the chance to learn that in a healthy way. Anger was usually, for us girls, it was something like, you're not, you got to be quiet, you got to be nice, you got to be kind, you got to be a good girl, you can't yell, you can't be mad, you just got to, do what you're told, those kind of things. Good girls aren't mad, good girls don't yell, good girls, do what they're told. So a lot of us have learned to suppress our anger, which usually happens. We suppress it, and then all of a sudden, poof, it explodes, and we're like, where did that come from? Or it can kind of just simmer under the surface and be like a lot of resentment and judgment and gossipy and grossness. So we want to get that out of there, right? We want to process it, we want to learn from it, we want to move on. So anger, I like to think of, is a protector energy. It's big, it's protective, it gets us moving physically. It's a big energy. So what we want to start doing with our anger is start trying to learn from it. So a lot of times anger is trying to show us where our boundaries have been overstepped, where people are taking advantage of us, or where we are ignoring our own boundaries. Okay, so if we are allowing our kids to overstep our boundaries all the time, maybe they're like jumping on us and you're tired, but you don't like set up that boundary and be like, we respect mom's body, we don't jump on mom's body, and those kind of things. And maybe eventually, you're just so sick of it and you're like, I told you to stop doing that. Who's been there? Yeah. Okay, so anger is an energy to know our boundaries, to create boundaries, and to hold boundaries, because we all know those are different things. So first we want to learn where our boundaries are. So if you're losing your temper with things, then obviously, let's think of it that way, with our kids, there is a boundary that needs to be set, and there's a boundary that's probably being crossed over and over and over again. It's not our kids' fault if they're stepping over those boundaries, okay? It's not a reason for us to be mad. It's not a justification that, we get to yell. It's a little bit of data for us to realize where our boundaries are, what our needs are as parents, as mothers, and to see, oh, that's important to me. It's important to me that I'm not jumped on and strangled from the back when, my kid's not hanging off me when I'm trying to do other things. That's a physical boundary that I need to hold and I need to share with my kids. And it's probably the same for them, like it's not fun for them to have people hanging off their back and choking them out. So let's talk about how we respectfully treat other people's bodies, and how we hold boundaries with other people and be like, no, I don't want to be treated that way. I don't want to be touched that way. I don't want to be, jumped on that way, and set those boundaries. So anger is a big, powerful energy. It's a protector energy. As moms, we do need that mama bear energy to come out sometimes and be like, no, that is not how you treat my kid. No, that is not how you treat me. No, that is not how we treat each other in this family. No, this is not happening. It's a big, beautiful energy for setting up boundaries. So if we can start learning how to recognize anger as signs of where we need to set more boundaries, and where we need to hold our boundaries in a more consistent manner as moms, it's going to be super powerful, okay? For a lot of us, anger can also be a secondary protective mechanism if we're, experiencing a lot of unmet needs and our boundaries are being overstepped in a lot of ways. Say we're not getting the sleep that we need. We're not holding that boundary with ourselves of the sleep that we need. And so we're not getting the sleep that we need. So then we're very, very tired. We're sleep deprived. We have very short fuse. And then we're getting mad with our kids. Then we can recognize, all of that anger is underneath all of that is me not getting my needs met as well, or it could be under there is a lot of childhood expectations, and this is how my parents dealt with this behavior. They got really mad, and when I see my kid melting down like that, it triggers that anger in me because that's how I was treated, and it's just built into my nervous system now. And that's an instant response when I see, a kid having a meltdown and expressing their anger. That's not safe. So my nervous system is instantly going, that's not safe. I'm going to trigger my nervous system, and my nervous system is going to go into that fight mode. And now we have two people having a battle. Okay, so that's when it's becoming more and more aware of when those feelings are coming up, so that we can tap on them, so we can pump out those jumping jacks, or whatever we need to do to start regulating our nervous system, get that energy out so that we can regulate our nervous system and respond to our kids in a calm way. And it's totally okay to leave the room. It's totally okay to go scream outside. It's totally okay to go to the pillow and hit it. It's totally okay to take a minute, lock yourself in the bathroom, do some tapping, whatever you need, okay? So healthy ways of managing that anger are going to be different for all of us, but we want to start demonstrating that for our kids. And things that we can do is start labeling it and be like, oh, I'm feeling very angry. That's the first step, is start recognizing it. And then the second set might be like, oh, I'm going to do some jumping jacks to get that energy out of my body. Okay, good. I'm going to go hit a pillow to get that energy out of my body. Okay, good. Now I can come back and we can discuss this, or we can talk about this. It doesn't all have to happen at once. If your kid's having a meltdown and you're starting to feel triggered, deal with yourself first. Deal with that anger first as best as you can, then come back so that you can be level-headed with your kid. And the more that we can regulate our nervous systems kind of on a proactive level, you know, making sure that our body is getting what it needs, getting the sleep that it needs, the food that it needs, the rest that it needs. Rest and sleep is so, so important. The easier it's going to be aware and catch those angry moments before they explode, okay? And it's gonna take practice. It's gonna take practice and practice and practice and compassion and forgiveness when we mess up, and then practice and practice and practice, okay? It's not like we know it in our heads and all of a sudden we can do it in the moment. It takes practice. Unfortunately, we can know it in our head and we think, oh, I should have known better. Well, we do know better, but our nervous systems haven't had the chance to heal yet. Our nervous systems haven't had the chance to figure out yet that, you know, this isn't how we're functioning anymore. So we got to give ourselves time to practice all of these things. So I'm going to quickly go through a few other big emotions and some of the things that we can learn from them, okay? Because I believe that all of our emotions are good. They're neither good nor bad. They're kind of neutral because we all have them, and they don't make us good or bad for experiencing them or having them. But we can learn from them, and a lot of times underneath the emotions there's something beautiful that is wanting to be looked at and seen in our own lives. Okay, so the next one that I want to talk about is resentment, and this is such a powerful emotion for me as a mom, and I think for a lot of moms, because we feel a lot of resentment. I felt a lot of resentment when I first became a mom, and I felt a lot of resentment against my husband because, you know, it didn't feel like his life changed a lot. He still got to go out with his friends, he still got to get a full night's sleep, he still got to just walk out of the house like without really anything changing for him. Obviously things changed, but I felt like a lot more things changed for me, and I felt like I wasn't getting what I needed, and I was resenting him for it. So resentment is always a sign for us to look at ourselves and be like, what do I need? What am I blaming him for that I'm not getting? And how can I take responsibility for those things that I'm not getting and make it happen? Okay, it's not our husband's job to read our minds. It's not our husband's job to know what we need. It's our jobs as adults, as mothers, to be like, oh, I really, really, really would love to, you know, have my husband watch the kids for an hour so I can go out and go for a walk. You know, if you don't say that to him, he's not going to read your mind and know it, okay? And you don't have to get mean about it. That's what I did. I'd get mean about it. Be like, well, you get to go wherever you want, right? And that was that resentment coming up, and it was shining a light on something that but I didn't know how to process that resentment in a healthy way. It just festered in there. So that is something that I started to do, is when I started to experience that resentment, then I was like, oh, ching, that's a need that I have. That's showing me that I have things that I need. And it's my job to figure out what that is. And I can talk to my husband about that, and I can say, you know, I'd like this and I'd like that, and it would be really nice if we could have this. How can we work it out? Okay? It doesn't have to be a big emotional issue. If you are experiencing a lot of resentment and you want somebody to talk to, then for sure reach out to me. I'd love to have a one-on-one call with you, or whatever you need, okay? Come into the group. whatever you need. All right. So another emotion that I would get really stuck in, probably my whole childhood, is guilt. So guilt is this loud inner critic that's always telling you, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's bad. You're doing that. That's wrong. You're bad. Over and over and over again. You know, you could have done that better. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. Okay? And that can come in so many different forms. As a mom, I'd be like, oh, you shouldn't be letting your kids watch that much TV. Oh, you shouldn't be feeding your kids that. Oh, you shouldn't be spending so much time on your phone. Oh, you shouldn't be, you know, all of the shouldn'ts. All of the shouldn'ts. Okay? All of those things that you're telling yourself you shouldn't be doing is all a sign of perfectionism and people pleasing. And it's a wound deep inside of us trying to protect us and keep us safe and make sure that, you know, we are safe in our circle, that we don't get pushed out of our circle for not being good enough. It's a whole acceptance and worthiness issue. And so guilt is often false guilt that a lot of us moms are carrying along a big, huge, heavy load of false guilt. And if that's you, I have a lot of compassion for you, a lot of understanding, because that was me. I was carrying so much false guilt, and I still do. It still sneaks up on me. So it's always a sign. Guilt is always a sign for a deep sense of compassion, a deep sense of self-compassion, where it's like, I do not have to be perfect. I do not have to have everything figured out. I do not have to be the perfect mom to be a wonderful mom. I do not have to figure everything out and have everything organized and to have a perfectly clean house, and I do not have to have a perfectly fit, you know, perfect meals, and I don't have to make sure my husband is happy, and I don't need to make sure that my kids are always happy. It's not my job to please everyone. And one of the things that I have done for you is I've created a tapping session on guilt, and what we do is we visualize guilt as its own separate little person trying to protect us and help us, so that nobody judges us, and so that we stay safe that way, so that nobody kicks us out, so that nobody punishes us for not being good enough. And we can just basically love on that part of us that's trying to protect us, and that's often has wounds from our own childhood underneath. For example, for me, like I grew up in a very religious home, so a lot of the behaviors would be like, oh, that's bad, that's not good, you know, God can't love you if you do that. I've got to, like, I got physically punished, spanked, to teach me a lesson, so that I would be a good girl and not be so bad, you know, those kind of things. That has really played a big role in the amount of guilt that I have. A lot of shaming was involved, a lot of guilt tripping was involved, and physical punishment is all in there. So there is a lot of inner healing work that I had to do too, that I continue to do. Healing is like a big spiral. We're always doing it. We're healing, but we're always healing more. There's new layers and new levels. The other one I wanted to talk, there's a few other ones I want to talk about, but fear is another one. So if you're feeling a lot of fear and anxiety that way about, you know, what's going to happen to my kids, what's going to happen to me, you know, what if this happens, what if that happens, and there's a lot of fear there, I believe that is part of our motherly instincts of like how our brain starts rewiring to be that mama bear and looking out for danger and looking out for this to keep our kids safe. So one thing that we can do is start looking at that fear and that anxiety and be like, wow, thank you so much for looking out for all of these dangers for me and my kids. Again, talking to it like it's an important part of yourself. Thank you so much for finding all of these things and trying to protect us and look after us. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. And I'm going to make some wise choices to keep us safe. And I'd like you to take a step back because this is getting overwhelming. You know, I am a big girl. I'm a big mama. I can keep my kids safe. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to enjoy my kids. I'm not going to live in the fear. I see you. Thank you for helping me keep everybody safe. Thank you for helping me see these dangers. And I'm going to go do the dishes. I'm going to go have a tub. I'm going to go play with my kids. I'm going to go play peekaboo. I'm going to go to the park, whatever it is, okay? And that has been super, super powerful for me as well. Okay, so worry and anxiety on the different levels. Like if you have chronic anxiety, that's something that I always had. It's usually a sign that you have a deep need for more self-care. So if you're just like chronically anxious and you don't really know what you're anxious about, you're just anxious, it's usually a sign of deep need of self-care. So things like rest, things like nutrition, things like water, things like exercise, things like deep connection with friends, maybe a creative outlet, those kind of things, okay? And maybe your self-care is, you know, getting a therapist or whatever it is, doing this work with us. For me, a big part of it is yoga nidra, doing the tapping, breath work. There's so many different things that we can do for self-care. It's up to you to figure out what you need and what's working for you. I can give you tons of ideas and help you with things, but ultimately it's up to you to figure out what you need and what you want and what your body needs. And just pouring on that self-compassion and being like, you know, over and over again, I deserve this. I'm worthy of this. This is hard. I need to be taken care of. This is hard and I'm doing such a good job. I'm such an amazing mom. I don't have to be perfect. I'm learning as I go. I'm just a brand new baby mama and I'm still figuring it out, okay? And if you're experiencing a lot of that racing thoughts, worry at night, it's probably your nervous system just being like so jacked up from being anxious and dysregulated all day. So I would suggest prioritizing rest, and that's something that I have been doing in a much deeper level lately with doing yoga nidra 3 or so times a week, having a more strict bedtime with a more relaxing evening routine. It's very flexible, but that is super powerful as well. So yes, I hope that some of those things kind of highlighted some of the ways you can learn from your emotions and gave you some ideas of how you can walk through them and process them and give them compassion, so that they can release that energy out of your body and come back to a more regulated state. And I will be making another video for how to talk about this stuff with our kids, and I feel like this could be like a whole like month-long course, but just a little introduction here for you, and talking about this stuff with yourself first and practicing it with yourself. That's the first step, and then the second step will be start talking about it and showing it showing your kids how to do it for themselves as well. Yeah, I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, bring it to the group, and I'd love to chat about it. Have a great night.